If you clicked on this video, you didn't click by accident. Something in your awareness was already moving before you even realized it. Maybe it was a quiet feeling, a small sense that something about reality doesn't fully add up. Not in an obvious way, not something you can easily explain, but enough to make you pause and question what you're truly seeing. There are moments when your attention shifts, even for a second, and you start to notice things differently. The same world, the same people, the same routine, but your perception feels slightly off, like you're looking at everything from an angle you've never used before. And in those moments, a question appears without effort. Not a loud question, but a subtle one. Is this really how things work? Most people ignore that question. Their mind moves on quickly, pulled back into familiar thoughts and habitual patterns. But if you're here, it means your consciousness didn't ignore it completely. It stayed with it just long enough to follow it here, and that matters more than it seems. Because the moment you begin to question your reality, even in the smallest way, something begins to change. Your observation is no longer passive. Your focus is no longer random. You are no longer just reacting. You are starting to, and the moment you truly start to look, reality doesn't stay the same. There's a strange feeling that shows up in certain moments, and it's hard to explain if you've never really paid close attention to it. Life starts to feel repetitive, almost like the same day is being played again and again with small variations. The same conversations, the same reactions, the same patterns repeating without much awareness of why they keep happening. And the more you notice it, the harder it becomes to ignore. You start to see how many people are moving through life on autopilot. Their behavior follows familiar loops, their thoughts repeat without question, and their focus is constantly pulled by whatever appears in front of them. It's not that they are doing anything wrong, it's that they are not really observing what they are doing. Their consciousness is active, but not fully present. They respond, but they don't see why they respond the way they do. And at some point you notice something deeper. Not just in others, but in yourself. You catch your own mind repeating the same patterns, the same emotional reactions, the same automatic choices. But at the same time, there is another layer that begins to appear. A part of you that is watching all of this happen in real time. That moment is subtle, but powerful, because when you start to see the pattern instead of just living inside it, your perception begins to shift. The repetition is no longer invisible. The autopilot is no longer complete. And something inside your awareness starts to separate from the pattern itself, quietly asking if there is another way to experience reality. There is an experiment that helps explain why this shift in awareness matters so much. It's called the Double-Slit experiment, and even though it comes from physics, the idea behind it is surprisingly easy to understand. Scientists took tiny particles of light and sent them toward a barrier with two small openings. What they expected was simple. The light should behave like solid particles, passing through one opening or the other in a predictable way. But that's not what happened. Instead, the light behaved like a wave. It moved as if it passed through both openings at the same time, creating a pattern that didn't match normal perception of how physical objects should act. This alone was confusing, but what happened next made it even more strange. The moment scientists tried to observe which opening the light was actually going through, the behavior changed. The same light that was acting like a wave suddenly started acting like a particle. It chose one path. The pattern disappeared. The outcome became fixed. Nothing else changed except the act of observation. Think about that carefully. The only difference was attention being placed on the system, and that attention changed how the light behaved. It shifted from possibility into a single result, from something open into something defined. And this is where it becomes important for your own life. Because if something as basic as light changes its behavior when it is observed, it raises a deeper question. What happens when your own consciousness begins to observe your thoughts, your patterns, your behavior? What happens when your focus is no longer automatic but intentional? Now bring this idea closer to your daily experience, because this is not just something happening in a laboratory. Your attention is constantly selecting what becomes clear and what stays in the background. Out of everything happening around you, you only experience what your focus rests on. The rest is still there, but it doesn't fully enter your awareness. Think about your own day. The moments you remember are not random. They are the moments where your observation was active, where your consciousness was actually present. Everything else fades, almost as if it never fully happened. It's not because those moments didn't exist, but because your mind wasn't truly there to experience them. Just like in the experiment, where light changes when it is observed, your experience begins to change when your attention becomes intentional. The way you see situations, the way you interpret people, even the way you feel, all of it starts to shift depending on where your focus goes. What you repeatedly give your attention to begins to feel more real, more important, more solid. Over time, this creates patterns. If your focus is always on problems, your perception of reality becomes filled with problems. If your attention stays on stress, your experience feels heavy and limited. But when your awareness shifts, even slightly, the same external situation can feel completely different. So in a quiet but powerful way, what you focus on doesn't just describe your reality, it shapes it. Most of the time, this process happens without real awareness. Your attention is not being directed consciously, it is being pulled by habit. This is autopilot. It's when your mind runs on learned patterns, repeating the same behavior, the same thoughts, and the same reactions without you actively choosing them. And the truth is, most people live a large part of their lives in this state. They are seeing but not truly observing. Their consciousness is active, but their observation is shallow. They move from one moment to the next, guided by routine and familiarity. The same situations trigger the same responses, again and again, because the underlying patterns are never questioned. You've probably noticed this in simple ways. A conversation where someone reacts before fully listening. A situation where emotions rise instantly, without any pause. Even in yourself, there are moments where your focus disappears, and when you return, you realize you are somewhere else entirely. In this state, your perception becomes limited to whatever patterns are already stored in your system. You are not seeing things as they are. You are seeing them through what has already been repeated, and because these patterns feel familiar, they feel true, even when they are not serving you. But the moment awareness enters, even slightly, something changes. The pattern doesn't disappear instantly, but it becomes visible. And once you can see a pattern, your consciousness is no longer fully controlled by it. There is a small space between the pattern and your response, a moment where your attention can choose, instead of simply reacting or reacting. That small space is where everything begins to shift. Now turn this inward, because the observer effect is not only happening outside you, it is happening inside your own mind all the time. The moment your awareness turns toward your thoughts, something subtle begins to change. Thoughts that were running freely start to slow down. Reactions that felt automatic begin to lose their force. It's not because you are forcing them to stop, but because your observation is now present. Think about a simple moment. A thought appears, a worry, a memory, a reaction. Normally, it pulls your attention immediately, and your consciousness follows without question. But when you notice it, when you actually see the thought as it appears, there is a shift. The thought is still there, but it doesn't feel as solid. It doesn't control your behavior in the same way. Without awareness, thoughts move like a continuous stream, shaping your perception without interruption. But with observation, that stream begins to break into individual moments. You start to see where one thought ends and another begins. You notice patterns that were invisible before. And in that noticing, something important happens. You realize that you are not the thought itself. You are the one who is aware of it. That difference, even if it feels small at first, changes everything. Because when your consciousness stops being fully identified with every thought, your attention gains a new kind of freedom. You can see the thought, feel it, but not automatically follow it. Just like in the experiment, where observation changes the outcome, your inner world begins to reorganize the moment it is observed. Not through force, but through simple, clear awareness. Before going further, I want you to experience this directly. Because real change begins when awareness becomes something you can feel, not just something you think about. So for a moment, bring your attention fully into what is happening right now. Take a slow breath and notice it, not by changing it, just by observing it. Feel the air coming in and then going out. Stay with that for a few seconds. If your focus moves away, just notice that it moved and gently bring it back. No force, no pressure, just simple observation. Now shift your attention to the sounds around you. Don't try to name them. Just let them be there and notice how they appear in your awareness. Some sounds are close, some are far, some are clear, some are soft. Just observe. Now notice your hands, where they are, touching the temperature, the weight. Bring your consciousness into that sensation as if you are noticing it for the first time. And now, watch your thoughts. Don't stop them. Don't control them. Just notice the next thought that appears. Watch how it comes, stays for a moment, and then fades or changes into another. During those moments when your attention was fully present, did your experience feel different? Even slightly. Maybe there was a bit more clarity, a bit less noise, a small sense of space between you and everything happening. For those few moments, your awareness was not lost in thoughts. Your consciousness was observing instead of reacting, and just like in the experiment, the moment observation became active, the experience itself began to shift. Not because anything outside changed, but because your attention did. What you just experienced is exactly what the science suggests applied to your mind. Observation is not passive. When you place your attention on something, a thought, a sensation, a small part of your experience, that act of observation changes it. Your consciousness begins to influence what was previously automatic. In your daily life, this means something profound. The way you notice things actually reorganizes your mind. Patterns that felt fixed start to become flexible. Thoughts that seem to control you suddenly have space around them where choice can enter. Every time you notice a thought or a pattern, every time you bring your awareness back to the present, your mind is slowly rewiring itself. What used to happen automatically begins to happen with consciousness behind it. This is the bridge between science and experience. Observation doesn't just change what you notice, it changes how your mind functions. You don't need to force your mind. You don't need to control every thought. Simple, repeated acts of awareness are enough to shift patterns, to reorganize your internal world, and to give you a clearer experience of life. Even after experiencing this, most people stay stuck in autopilot. It's not because they don't want change. It's because the mind naturally prefers what is familiar. Patterns that have been repeated for years feel safe, even if they limit your experience. They feel automatic and energy efficient. Your consciousness doesn't need to work as hard when it follows familiar loops, so the mind clings to them without realizing how much they restrict perception. Another reason is lack of awareness. Most people don't notice the autopilot state at all. Their attention moves from one thought to the next, never pausing to observe patterns running underneath. Without noticing, there's no space for choice. Without awareness, what repeats is invisible, and what is invisible cannot be changed. But once you begin to observe actively, the first cracks appear. Awareness doesn't destroy the pattern immediately. It simply shines a light on it, creating space where choice can exist. And that small space, repeated over time, is how people break free. The real power comes from repetition. Small moments of awareness, even just seconds long, add up. Each time you notice a thought, an emotion, or a pattern, you are building a new pathway in your consciousness. The autopilot routines weaken while new patterns grow stronger. You don't need to force yourself to be present all the time. You only need to return often enough for awareness to become familiar. With repeated attention, moments of presence last longer. What once felt difficult becomes ordinary. Your mind starts choosing observation naturally, and autopilot loses its grip. Over time, these small acts transform your experience completely. Conversations feel more alive, decisions become clearer, and ordinary moments gain presence that was missing before. Your consciousness is no longer just reacting, it is actively shaping reality from within. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes. Awareness stops being effort and becomes default. The observer within you grows stronger, and patterns that once ran automatically now flow under the guidance of your attention. By now, you've already started to notice the shift. Just reading, listening, and following these moments of awareness has changed something inside. You are not the same mind that began this video. Even small attention shifts are the beginning of larger change, a subtle but real rewiring of your reality from the inside out. The important thing is this: you don't need to force transformation. Change is already happening the moment you observe. Every time you catch yourself on autopilot, every time you notice a thought without getting lost in it, you are participating in your own evolution. Your awareness is shaping your experience moment by moment. Keep noticing, keep observing. Look for small moments when your attention can return to presence. Acknowledge the autopilot and gently bring yourself back to consciousness. Every repetition builds new pathways, strengthens your ability to choose, and deepens your experience of life. This is not a one-time achievement, it is a continuous practice. Each moment of presence becomes a mirror showing you something already moving within. So notice this moment, feel it, feel it. You are already changing, you are already shaping your reality, and the more you return to awareness, the clearer your experience becomes, the stronger your consciousness grows, and the more fully you live.